The tower that you were telling me about, this one, this is actually this one behind us.
Exactly, the round tower.
But the strategic use of this tower, this was the gunpowder tower, yes?
The gunpowder tower, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if we orientate this way, we have the
tower behind us
here, yeah. And the original entrance to the castle was further.
Using Brand's medieval floor plans and cutting-edge animation techniques, it's possible to open a window onto the castle in the 15th century. Not a fairy tale Gothic castle, but the most secure and imposing fortress on the Transylvanian border. It was a major feat of construction.
The territory around here isn't conducive to significant road-based travel, so just getting the stuff there is a huge, huge undertaking. And then when you're there, to get up this high, without the sort of lifting technology we have today, they would have built up scaffolding systems using timber, they would have built off the structure as they go along. They're all very, very big challenges.
For Vlad Dracula, Bran Castle was the ideal springboard from which he'd launch his bid for power. The bloody reign of Dracula was about to begin. To consolidate his rule, he would embark on one of the biggest building programs in the history of his country. In 1456, the throne of the Romanian princedom of Wallachia was seized by Vlad Dracula, the man who gave his name to the world's most famous vampire. Uncovering this lost world is a team of investigators. They want to expose the extensive building projects he began at the start of his reign. He was trying to impose order on an unruly land. Vlad Dracula has a name to live up to. He inherited it from his father, Vlad Dracul, the former ruler of Wallachia and a knight of the Order of the Dragon. The dragon became part of the family crest.
Draculea, he was the son of Vlad Dracul. And also there's the connection with Dracul itself, which means the devil.
Following tradition, Dracula, son of the devil, takes Târgoviște as his capital city. It is a place of legendary terror. Some of Dracula's worst atrocities take place here. But when he arrives, it is his life that is in imminent danger.
This is not only the capital of his realm, but it's also the capital of political assassinations. It's also the capital of intrigue.
He expects to be murdered. He fears poisoning. Everything he eats is tasted first by a trusted servant. Rival princes called boyars traditionally dominate politics in Wallachia. The knowledge that they will do anything to get rid of him forces Vlad's hand. It is kill or be killed.
For generations, the Vlachian landowners had changed their loyalty back and forth and back and forth. And in order to retain power, Vlad has got to get rid of the boyar.
Vlad's antipathy toward the boyar is also deeply personal.
His father has been murdered by the boyars, and so here is a man, I think, bent on vengeance. He's got a score to settle, and he does.
But before Dracula can be rid of his boyar enemies, he needs protection. And in the present-day ruins lie clues to a massive building project that took place here more than 500 years ago.
It's all part of his cunning plan to build this image, if you like, this image of power, this image that he's in control, the impression that he is the great leader, the mighty voivod of Wallachia.
The palace complex at Târgoviște was begun by Dracula's grandfather. In his father's time, a 60-foot wide defensive moat was added. But Dracula himself was to build a palace complex that surpassed all that had gone before. The Great Hall was rebuilt to encompass a vast area of more than 3,000 square feet, and an imposing watchtower gave Dracula a panoramic view of his territory. The whole palace complex was encased in walls that were as much as 5 feet thick. The vast cellars beneath the Great Hall reveal the sheer scale of Vlad's ambition.
What we have here is a huge volume of space, and that volume was created through the construction of barrel-vaulted cellars.
The arches are typical of what's called the Byzantine style of building. They were constructed using a timber framework called a former. The bricks were built around it. It was a feat that had to be supervised by a master mason. His very life depended on getting it right.
Traditionally, when you remove the formwork from a fresh arch, the master mason has to stand underneath and be the first one there when the formwork's removed. So if it's ever going to fall on anyone, it'll fall on him.
Although few clues remain, some still believe the cellars housed not just palace supplies, but far darker secrets. Like Vlad's own private torture chambers. Restored in the 19th century, this tower was perhaps the most striking feature that Vlad Dracula added to Târgoviște. Built of a riverstone base with upper stories of brick, it soared more than 60 feet into the air and provided a commanding view. Once finished, Vlad's palace was a highly defensible series of barriers.
As a defensive position, this structure appears to be well set. You can defend progressively backwards, so you have a succession of hurdles to overcome. Once you've got over that one, you're in the moat and people are still lobbing stuff at you. Once you've got over that one, everyone runs back inside there and they're firing at you from the tower and from the roofs and from everywhere else. You can imagine the life toll will be fairly severe for the people attacking it.
With Târgoviște transformed into a high-security headquarters, Dracula began exterminating his boyar enemies. He showed ruthlessness that has become legendary.
There is no doubt that the only way Vlad could get rid of the boyar and cement himself in power was to kill them all.
On Easter Sunday, 1457, Dracula committed one of his most infamous atrocities. He set his trap by inviting the boyars to a meal in the Great Hall.
Vlad asked them rather pointedly how many lords they had had over a 50-year period, and most of them couldn't answer him because they'd had so many. And the reason they'd had so many is that they had been removed by force by those very boyars, which was exactly the answer that Vlad wanted. They were condemning themselves out of their own mouths, and so, according to legend anyway, he had them impaled, 500 of them.
Impalement was a terrifying method of execution.
Now, the common way would be to put your enemy on the end, the sharpened end of this stake, pierce them through the navel or through the heart, and hoist them up and leave them to die. A relatively quick death. That was for the more fortunate, because if you really wanted to make an example of you, he'd take this rounded end and he'd grease it, and then he'd pull your legs apart and insert it into your rectum. So through your bottom, and gradually the stake would work its way through your body. This might take a couple of days, okay? So you'd be literally dying for hours.
Târgoviște was littered with the impaled bodies of the dead and dying. But Dracula didn't kill everyone immediately. For some, he intended a longer, more productive death. And here, on this high, inaccessible mountaintop on the border of Transylvania, they were forced to build a fortress that is the real Castle Dracula.